I've had quite a long career as a singer, and sometimes that's been involved in singing in bedrooms to singing in some really world famous studios. And there's a few things that I've learned, sometimes the hard way, that I'd like to pass on to you. So we're going to talk about 5 tips for singing in the recording studio. And I want you to think and to remember really that what you're trying to do in a studio is to capture a great performance. You know how good you can be, so capture it in a studio. And really your goal is to create something that's authentic and as professional, that really relates to the listener and is going to translate in your music. So the first point is really important. I think it's important for you to choose the right mic for you and the right mic for the song as well. So microphones have different jobs, and some are to make your vocal warmer, some are to make your vocal brighter. So you can choose a dynamic mic, a condenser mic, a valve mic. There are lots of different choices. So it's always a good idea before you even go in the studio to speak to the producer or engineer about the kind of effects you'd like to achieve, and maybe even play them some tracks to reference, and ask them if you can allocate some time in the session to actually try out their mics. If they're really kind, they might let you do so beforehand, but if not, just allocate some time during your session to really play around with the mics and see which sound you like. And you may choose a very different microphone sound for a different song, and that's completely fine. So the second thing that I'd like to share with you is the distance that you stand from the mic and the impact this can have, and also the necessity of using a pop shield, which you don't need in a live context at all, but for recording it can be really, really helpful. So the distance you stand from a mic can affect, if you stand quite close to a microphone, it can encourage the bassier timbres, the lower sounds in your voice. And that can be great if you want something really intimate. But if you're doing something quite dynamic or more poppy and bright, you may want a bit more distance. And similar to when you're singing live, there are times when you want to back off your microphone a little bit and come closer. But generally, the producer or the engineer should be taking care of that, so you don't have to do too much work actually in the studio in terms of moving around from the microphone. So to use a pop shield, what a pop shield is it looks like this, a bit of a lollipop. I've seen some great homemade ones as well, which are just a pair of tights over a hanger, and they work. So a pop shield literally sits in front of your microphone like this, and it means that plosive sounds, so plosive, that p, b sounds, they're minimised. The impact of the mic, you don't get that big spill of breath when you do a strong plosive sound. And also sibilance, which is an S, sometimes an FE sound where you get that s sound, is avoided. You know, it's kind of dispersed before it actually hits the mic. So really useful tools. Experiment with the distance, use a pop shield. Tip 3 is the necessity of getting a good headphone mix. Now, for singers that aren't used to recording, sometimes singing with headphones on can be a bit different, and it is different than singing live, because obviously when you're singing live, you're hearing yourself in the room, in the space that you're in. But with headphones, often that's quite new, and you hear yourself in quite a dry way, which means there's very little room around it, there's very little vocal effect. So when you're using headphones, what you basically want to hear is yourself really clearly, so your vocal clearly, but also the instrumentation that you're singing along to clearly, so that you can sing in tune and in time. Now, sometimes when you're wearing headphones, this is a good chunky pair. Occasionally in the studio, I like to lift just one off. Now, the important thing is to not let the sound spill from the headphone into your vocal take. But sometimes it helps if you can hear yourself in the room as well as what's going into your cans. But that really is a personal preference. So tip 4 is capturing a performance. And we all know that feeling when we're really in the zone and music feels like it's passing through us rather than us having to work really hard at making it happen. So really, for a really good performance in the studio, you want to feel prepared, so really well rehearsed, know what you're doing, relaxed and in the moment. So what you're really trying to do is concentrate on the song. Now, you might be in the studio for the first time, but that shouldn't really detract from your ability to connect with your song and sing it the best as you can. So for some singers, I mean, the recording process really is different for everyone. For me, I like to do 3 really good takes and then take the one that I think is the best performance and then edit from the other 2. And sometimes that'll take me a while to get in the zone, and sometimes that'll come really quickly. So make sure you record everything, because you never know when the magic is going to strike. And some singers are really meticulous. They record almost phrase by phrase, little lines. That's fine. And also up to 50 takes or whatever some people take if you really want to get it right. But remember that the less time you spend in the studio, the more constructive your use of time is. So try and be as relaxed as you can, as prepared as you can, and let the magic happen. So the last tip, tip 5, is a bit prosaic really, but it's getting rid of distractions. Now the reason I say this is, when you're the singer in the studio, it's really important that you have the time to be the artist. Now in these days of multitasking, often if you're leading a band, you're the musical director, you're the manager, you've booked the session, you've organised everyone. But when you're actually singing your vocal, it's time to be the artist, not even the songwriter, but the artist. So sometimes if you feel like you want the lights off to kick off your shoes, do it. You know, it's up to you to be really, really comfortable, and don't let other people dictate what that environment is for you. Take control of it and just say, this is how I feel most comfortable, this is what I want. As an artist, you've got an absolute right to ask for that. And sometimes, especially if you're doing a band recording, you might have people still around and they've done their bit and they're chatting, and that's fine. But you might want that relaxed environment, and that is fine. But sometimes you might just want to be there on your own, just you and the producer. So feel free to say to your bandmates or whoever's around, this might be a great time for a tea break. And, you know, ask for what you need as the artist. I think it's really important. And then you can just let your artistry flow. You can really sing in the way that you want to sing, and make the studio a really enjoyable and fulfilling experience rather than a potentially stressful one.